can you tell us at this time about the decision to postpone the Masters?
It just makes sense with everything that's going on and with as little as we know about how this virus works, and especially now that the PGA Tour canceled the rest of its schedule leading up to the Masters. It was one of those decisions that almost Augusta National was forced into, and it was the right decision.
What kind of impact did you get from the players, knowing you've spoken to a few of them? What were the kind of things that they're telling you? What was their mentality like right now?
Steven, I've been up at the clubhouse pretty much all morning talking to guys as they're unpacking or packing out their lockers to go home and go wherever they live now, because they're going to be home for a little while. And the underlying tone from almost every guy coming out of that clubhouse leaving was surreal. It just doesn't seem real that we aren't going to be playing golf and that we aren't going to be playing the Masters as scheduled in April. Guys just are shaking their heads. One of my friends, Jason Kokrak, said he had been trying for 9 straight years to qualify for the Masters, and this was the first one he finally qualified for, and now they're not playing it.
I'm going to think a little positive in terms of eventually the games are going to return and we'll be back seeing folks perform and what have you. How do you believe this will affect their game, their performance, if at all?
Well, this is the toughest thing for most of the golfers out there. Some of the guys now who were trending in the right direction, like Jason Kokrak, whose game was coming around, like Justin Thomas, who had played horrible before but was starting to trend in the right direction. You look at someone like Rory McIlroy, who hadn't had anything but top 5 finishes. What do these guys do? And the problem for a golfer now is we know they're going to be off for at the minimum 4 weeks, but what next? Do they start practicing the week of the Masters, gearing up like Hilton Head's going to happen because that's the tournament after the Masters? And even though the tour says, well, we're moving forward like that tournament's going to happen, realistically, it's probably not going to happen. So for golfers, the hard thing is, when do you start gearing up and preparing for a tournament if you don't know when the next tournament's going to be?
So Rory McIlroy, as has been mentioned, has been vocal about, getting people tested. It does seem, Michael, as though golf is a sport that can be played theoretically if even slightly more tests become available to the public. Right now, they're extremely hard to find, even if you're symptomatic. If you can't prove that you've come from a place directly where there's an outbreak, or else you've been around someone who's tested positive. But if and when tests become more accessible, is there a sense that will be done, that you test the participants and those around them and then stage things without a crowd? Or is it the sense that until things get back to normal, there just won't be golf tournaments?
Max, the one thing, the starting point you have to be at is that these guys are all independent contractors. So it's kind of going to be up to them to go get tested when it becomes available, if it becomes available in the way that you're talking about. The downside is, what happens if you go get tested and you're fine? And then someone else doesn't get tested, and they're going to want to play a tournament too. Do you let them play? Do you not let them play? What happens if someone has a test one day and it comes back negative, and then the next day they have another test and it comes back positive?
Right.
So I don't think we're at a point right now to say that. But I did talk to Billy Horschel, and I asked him specifically, have you been tested yet? He said no. I said, do you know any player or caddy on tour that's been tested yet? And he said no. He didn't know of any player that's been tested yet. I like what Rory McIlroy was saying, and I agree with it. I think everyone who's out on the PGA Tour, traveling with the PGA Tour, if it's feasible, should be tested if we're going to start playing tournaments again, if it's feasible. And until everyone who's going to play gets tested, or everyone who's going to be out at tournaments, whether it's covering them, playing them, caddying them, volunteering, all of it.
But, Michael, you bring up a very good point. There are 2 steps to it. Even if theoretically people were willing to do this, you got to get tested, and then you got to quarantine yourself. Or there needs to be some kind of procedure for quarantine. But there may be enormous demand for sports to the point that it becomes worth it for sports like golf, the UFC or boxing, or sports where it's theoretically possible where tests to become available to do that and quarantine themselves. I'm just wondering what the appetite is for it.
At some point, the appetite is going to be huge. if everyone is stuck at home for a long amount of time, we are all going to be jonesing for sports. I mean, that's just going to happen. The problem for golf, again, is because they're independent contractors, unlike team sports, where people can say, listen, we need the whole basketball team, we need the whole baseball team, we need the whole football team to come to the facility, and you're going to be stuck here for 2 weeks under quarantine. Golf doesn't work like that. Where are you going to tell golfers, listen, we need all the golfers from around the world who might play in a PGA Tour event to come to this one area and sit there for 2 weeks? Plenty of guys are going to say, I'm good, I'll quarantine myself. And unfortunately, we are not in a situation in a pandemic like this. I can't trust you. I need you to be right here.
My question to you, because we got to go. Last question. Are you an advocate, a proponent of golf being played without the fans in attendance, particularly at this moment in time, assuming the sport is back in a month, 2 months, or what have you? Are you a supporter? Do you believe that the sport can still flourish without the fans in attendance for a period of time?
If that's how we got to get professional golfers playing again, do it. Let's do it. Because guess what? If you're a fan of golf, you're going to watch it on TV, even if that's the only way you can get it.
Got it.
And I don't know anyone who doesn't feel that way.